Hello, my name is George and I'm a tutor with Telios Tutors, and this is my sample lesson in philosophy. Now, I thought I'd do it on an introduction to philosophy, as there's probably no better place to start than at the beginning. And at the beginning of this introductory lesson, I thought I'd ask the question, what is philosophy? Now, unlike a lot of other subjects, that's actually quite a hard question to answer. And there not being an easy answer to, questions without easy answers is basically a good definition of philosophy, in a way. The more literal definition would go back to the ancient Greek meaning of the word philosophy, which is a love of wisdom. And that's essentially what it's about, in a very sort of basic sense, is discussing knowledge and wisdom and trying to arrive at a greater understanding of what is and the universe and all of those sorts of things. And in many ways, philosophy comes before the perhaps more formal disciplines of knowledge like science and astronomy and things like that, as the kind of foundational human thought about what there is around the place in the world. There's no easy answer to what philosophy is, and in a sense, that's actually quite a good way to define philosophy, because philosophy is about those areas of knowledge which don't have easy answers. Unlike science, where you have a very straightforward, you have the planet Jupiter and it has this much mass and gravity, or you have the sun is the center of the solar system. You have correct answers. And in philosophy, you have a lot more grey area. In many ways, philosophy is the grey area of knowledge, as I've written here. I'm getting ahead of myself a bit, but I thought I would start this off with a couple quotes from Bertrand Russell, who is a 20th century British philosopher with a fantastic pipe there, and doesn't he just look like someone called Bertrand? And he said that it cannot be maintained that philosophy has had any very great measure of success in its attempts to provide definite answers to its questions. Unlike mathematics, science, and all of that, if you ask mathematicians to talk about topics which are agreed upon in their subject, they will give you a number of, different things. I don't know exactly what examples to give. They'll tell you about, pi or Pythagorean theorems or whatever in mathematics, and in science, or let's say biology, they'll tell you about evolution is generally, pretty much entirely agreed upon as the truth now in biology. But in philosophy, there's just still a debate. You will find no two philosophers who agree on everything, to a greater extent even than you'll find historians and other people like that who disagree on things. And since philosophy comes in many ways before science and before mathematics, these other disciplines were originally philosophy. You might know that actually I'll just read the quote because he makes my point, or it's his point really. He makes the point here that as soon as definite knowledge concerning any subject becomes possible, this subject ceases to be called philosophy and becomes a separate science. The whole study of the heavens, the stars, which now belongs to astronomy, was once included in philosophy. And Isaac Newton's great work was called The Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. Similarly, the study of the human mind, which was part of philosophy, has now been separated and has become the science of psychology. So you see, there's all of these subjects which were called philosophy originally, because it's just, about discussing what we know and human wisdom and knowledge, and they have now become their own disciplines because basically we found the right answer. And as soon as that definite answer has been found, it's not philosophy anymore. It goes off into its own discipline and it becomes something else. So what are we actually left with if you take all of these definite answers out of the discipline of philosophy? Well, we're left with things which are open to interpretation. So a philosophical problem could be something like morality. There are many different ideas of what is and isn't moral across the world, throughout all of time, and there's no definite one single answer. We have agreements in society, but it's not scientific in the same way as saying that the sun rises in the morning is a definite agreed upon truth. Instead, in morality, is it always wrong to steal if you're starving? Or, I don't know, just a random example, but that would be a philosophical problem, ethics, but that comes under philosophy. So that's the domain of philosophy, is those questions which can't be answered specifically, or should I say, they cannot be given a very sort of simple yes or no. So today, scientists might disagree on the facts, but they agree on the method by which the facts are established and the way in which facts are proved and discovered. But philosophy differs because philosophers don't just agree on what is true, excuse me, they also disagree on the standards by which we establish something is true or untrue. So scientists will disagree on what we know. They might have different theories about how an animal evolved or something. But philosophers also disagree on how we know. And this leads me to introduce the very first philosophical jargon of today, and that is these two words which you might be familiar with, ontology and epistemology. Now, these are both very complicated ways of saying actually quite simple things. So ontology is what we know. So ontology is the philosophical study of being, or of what is. So yeah, it's as simple as saying ontology is about what we know, and epistemology is how we know. So epistemology is about the study of knowing itself, rather than what is, how we know what is. So these are very fancy terms with quite simple meanings, but they are really quite important pieces of philosophical jargon to know, because engaging with philosophy at any level will probably, or almost certainly, bring up these two words. So yeah, sorry to give you a couple of annoyingly obtuse words there, but they do help with getting to grips with many philosophers' different perspectives. So a quick example of these two in practice is a chair. Let's say a chair. So the ontology would be that there is a chair. And the epistemology would be, we know that there is a chair because we can see the chair. But, as we mentioned before, philosophers don't just disagree on what we know, they also disagree on how we know. So, a rival philosopher might disagree with me on my conclusion that there is a chair, because they would say that seeing the chair is not sufficient proof that there is actually a chair there, because I could be hallucinating. I could be mad. You never know. And that's the exciting thing about philosophy, in a way, is that there is no right answer like there is in another subject. And that's so often a cliche when you're in all sorts of subjects, that there's no right answers. But it is actually true and quite meaningful here, because philosophy is an exploration of those questions which have stuck with us since the beginning of time. The same questions which were discussed by, let me get the highlighter, by these guys up here, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, all of those ancient Greeks, they're still with us today. There are no definite answers for the questions that they were asking, well, for almost all of them at least. So philosophy is being a part of this human dialogue which has existed for over millennia at this point. It's really something, it's a connection to the very first speculations that there were about our world, and for that reason alone I find it completely fascinating. But yeah, I hope that this has been a good sort of introduction to the subject of philosophy, and that it's helped to spark your interest in it. And if you're the kind of person who likes concrete answers, I may have put you off of it forever, but I do feel that philosophy, more than some subjects, is not for everyone. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it anyway. So thank you for listening very much, and I'll see you soon.